Alrighty then. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Matthew Baker of Beautiful New York Tours. One of my many favorite things about living in New York is that I get to share this city with a lot of my heroes, a lot of people I admire. Many of my favorite athletes are based in New York. A lot of my favorite actors are based in New York. A lot of my favorite musicians are based in New York. And a lot of my favorite writers are based in New York. And the writers are what I want to focus on today because one of the great things about being a book lover in a city like New York is that so many of the great bookshops have Meet the Author events. When your favorite author comes out with a new novel or a new work of reportage or a new collection of poetry, whatever particular genre you love, they do a book tour. They will often do the book tour in major cities. So even those who don't live in New York will come here for their book tour, and they will do readings at large bookstores where they can then sign the book and, of course, sell the book. And it gives you that chance to thank them for the wonderful effects that they have had on your life and to share space with someone who really inspires you. And that's something I love. I have managed to meet interesting people like the mystery novelist Ed McBain, the Pulitzer and Nobel laureate Toni Morrison, the actor Alan Alda, who of course is also a famous essayist and memoirist as well. A lot of really interesting people who write really interesting work show up at the bookstores in New York. And that's a wonderful thing. But they don't just show up for appearances, they live here. And because they live here, the city often informs their work. You can feel New York in the book, so to speak. And the nice thing is, it works the other way around too. You can feel the book in New York. If you walk around New York City's streets, you can see on some of the buildings little plaques. And these plaques will speak to when those buildings are historic. Now, a building can be historic for many reasons. It can be because of its architecture. It can be because of a certain thing that happened there. It can be because it represented its time. Or it can be because of a person who lived or worked there. And you can build an entire walking tour around the homes of the great authors, especially if you're walking around a wonderfully bohemian neighborhood like Greenwich Village in as little as half an hour, though you don't want it to be that short. You want to spend an afternoon, but you can, in as little time as half an hour, go from a home of Mark Twain to a home of Edgar Allan Poe to the home of Emma Lazarus, who is not as famous a name, but you all know her work in the poem The New Colossus about the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That poem. To a home of Khalil Gibran, to a home of E. E. Cummings. They're all very close to each other, and many of them are marked with these plaques. There's nothing like spending a day at Washington Square Park thinking about Edgar Allan Poe getting kicked out of West Point after his first day of basic training there, and then walking alongside where Henry James's grandmother's house used to be, and imagining him as a child listening to her talk about the time that he would later write about in his novel Washington Square. If you don't know the novel Washington Square, you might know the title of its movie adaptation, The Heiress. But then as you walk west from Washington Square, you can stop in for lunch or a drink at the White Horse Tavern and think about the fact that you might be sitting at Dylan Thomas's table. The White Horse is where Dylan Thomas drank himself to death. The famous story is that he stood up from the table and announced to his friends, "That's my 18th whiskey. I think that's a record," and promptly passed into the coma from which he never woke up. Now, of course, it didn't really happen that way. That's how he would have written it. He actually staggered home to the Chelsea Hotel, where he tried to order yet another drink. You really have to admire this kind of dedication. But he passed out there and was brought to St. Vincent's Hospital and never woke up. It was a real shame. By the time Dylan Thomas was my age, he'd been dead for 6 years. At any rate, these authors and many others are definitely among those you can enjoy in Greenwich Village, and many of those homes, again, are marked. Oh, definitely make sure if you go down Bedford Street, you check out the narrowest building in New York City. It was once the home of Edna St. Vincent Millay. Edna St. Vincent Millay, whose poem Recuerdo, "We were very tired, we were very merry, we were riding back and forth all night on the ferry," is now written on the walls of the Staten Island Ferry Terminal. She had 4 homes in Greenwich Village and was one of the great New York writers as well. I could go on all day about New York writers, but you get the idea. When you would like to do a tour that is based on their homes and lives, when it is safe to do so, please check me out at Beautiful New York Tours. You can search Beautiful New York Tours on Facebook or email me at baker.tours@yahoo.com. Again, that is baker.tours@yahoo. Thank you very much.